One of the mainstays of the 607 argument is that the 70 years are completely synonymous with the exile. In this line of thinking, the 70 years are said to begin with the destruction of Jerusalem, and for an exact period of 70 years, the land is said to be completely desolate and without an inhabitant, and all the Jews entirely removed from the land of Israel. But is this truly the case according to the Bible? What is the relationship of the 70 years to the exile? The actual history of the exile is not so simplistic. As we previously seen, Jeremiah chapter 25, verses 11 and 12 shows that the 70 years would be a time when the nations would begin to serve Babylon. By 605 BC, Babylon had gained control of Syria, Asia Minor, northern Arabia, and Palestine. Judah, along with these other nations, were vassal states, subject to the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. However, the king of Judah, Jehoiakim, stopped paying tribute to Babylon and sided with Egypt. In consequence, Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem in 599 BC. During the siege, Jehoiakim died and was succeeded by his brother Jeconiah. In March of 597 BC, after Jeconiah had ruled a mere 3 months and 10 days, Jerusalem fell. Jeconiah, his household, and thousands of leading Jews and their families were sent into exile in the first deportation. From the viewpoint of those deported to Babylon, the exile had begun. However, this was merely the first round of deportation. Later, King Zedekiah also rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. Once again, Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem. In his 18th year, he conquered and destroyed Jerusalem, and deported a second wave of people to Babylon. After the destruction of Jerusalem in Nebuchadnezzar's 18th year, and the subsequent deportation, were all the people truly exiled from the soil of Judah from that point until the end of the 70 years? Actually, no. Jeremiah records a third wave of deportation in Nebuchadnezzar's 23rd year, 5 years after the destruction of Jerusalem. Notice how Jeremiah reports these 3 deportations in chapter 52, verses 28 through 30. This is the number of the people whom Nebuchadnezzar deported. In the 7th year, 3,023 Judeans. In the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, 832 persons from Jerusalem. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, deported 745 Judean persons. There were 4,600 persons in all. Therefore, how could it be said that at the time of Jerusalem's destruction, all the people were exiled from the land of Judah, if more were exiled 5 years later? The truth is, Jews went into exile before the destruction of Jerusalem, at the time of Jerusalem's destruction, and years after the destruction of Jerusalem. The exile is a more messy affair than it may first appear. Not all the people were exiled at once, nor did all the exiles return at once when Babylon fell. Scripture counts the exile as starting with the deportation of Jeconiah. Notice Matthew chapter 1 verses 11 and 12. And Josiah became the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah became the father of Shealtiel. Likewise, Ezekiel was among those deported with Jeconiah in 597 BC. Throughout the book of Ezekiel, the prophet counted time relative to the beginning of his exile. For instance, Ezekiel 1:1 says, "And it was in the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, and I was in the midst of the exiles by the Chebar River." We've established that the exile began 10 years before Jerusalem's destruction, and continued some time after. Jeremiah never prophesied about the exact length of the exile. However, in chapter 29, he wrote a letter to those exiled in Babylon that did mention the 70 years. Examining this letter in context will give us a more rounded picture of the connection of the exile with the 70 years for Babylon.